remind you that we are broadcasting live. So if you have a question, please wait for the runners. We did a really good job last time, so everybody was able to hear the questions. In your packets, you will have the agenda and slides. And if you, I'm a little nervous of the microphones now. And if you are watching via the live webcast, the CalPERS email address is CalPERS_SEAC, SEAC, at calpers.ca.gov. So if you have questions, please email that to us. With me today is Stephanie Duncan and Susan Four. They'll be running the microphones and responding to the emailed questions. We have a pretty full agenda, so let's get started. We have Andrew White from our Legislative Affairs. All right.
Okay. Good morning. It's a little more awkward than I expected, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm Andrew White with the CalPERS Legislative Affairs Division. Can you hear me now? Okay, all right. Is that better? Okay. Microphones be damned. So I'm Andrew White with the CalPERS Legislative Affairs Division, and I'll be providing a legislative update this morning. The legislature is on summer recess and should be coming back. We're supposed to come back next week, and then they have 5 weeks till the end of session. So we have, CalPERS has 2 sponsored bills this year. And the first one is AB 672 regarding disability retirement. It's a clarifying bill that moved very quickly and has already been signed into law. It simply clarifies existing practices, and there shouldn't be any changes for employers or for members. The other is SB 782, which is our housekeeping bill, which has a number of technical and clarifying changes. Of possible note for you is a clarifying change to the sick leave balance conversion to retirement service credit. It's a clarifying change that simply codifies existing business practice. It's okay. And so presuming that that can be signed into law, you won't have to do anything different than you're doing now. So hopefully, so if you have any questions, we can answer that. One other bill of potential interest to you is Senate Bill 266 by Senator Leyva. This is a reintroduction of a bill that was vetoed last year related to disallowable compensation. This is intended to protect retirees whose pensions have been found to be too high because their final compensation included compensation items that should not have been reported as pensionable. The bill requires employers to make up the difference of the reduced benefit either through an annuity to the member or a lump sum payment. CalPERS's role is to provide, upon request, a review of compensation items and some guidance on whether or not it appears to comply with reporting laws. The bill is in Assembly Appropriations next week or the week after, and we'll see if there's any amendments or any changes. Governor Brown vetoed the bill, seeing that something might need to be done to help retirees whose pension have been reduced through no fault of their own, but at the same time expressed concerns about costs and directed the legislature to try to find some way to prevent these mistakes from happening. Governor Newsom, we have no idea what he might think about the bill, and so we have no idea if he is going to continue Governor Brown's opinion on this. As I said, the legislature is coming back from summer recess next week. They have 5 weeks to finish the end of session September 13th, and then the governor has until October 13th to sign or veto all the bills that are put on his desk. I am available for questions if you have any. Yes. I think we're supposed to wait for the microphone.
Hi, this is Veena from Orange County.
Yeah.
Can you repeat one more time about SB 266, about the employer will make up the difference if it was done, mistake done by the employer?
So what's your question?
I want to hear that one more time, what you said.
So if it's discovered that a retiree's final compensation is at the level that it is because the employer reported a compensation item that is not allowable, and it was reported in such a way as that it wasn't obvious when it was reported the first time, so we didn't just reject it, then we reduce the payment on a going forward basis and potentially seek money back. The bill requires for that difference for the employer to, while the numbers themselves are on a case-by-case basis, essentially make the member whole, so that if it's an annuity, the retiree is receiving a pension from PERS, but then also they're receiving an annuity paid for by the employer that is the difference from what it was reduced. That's the idea.
And isn't it like it will be like gift of public funds when employers have to make up the difference? How would that money come from?
It would be public funds, but this would be money that the employer had already agreed to. Like this would be something that they had already built in as a compensation item. I have heard that argument. It doesn't make that much sense to me, but I'm not a lawyer.
And this is sponsored by?
It's sponsored by the California Professional Firefighters and supported by other labor groups.
Thank you. Is PERS liable for anything?
No. Okay. I think we're done.
All right, thank you. Okay, next up we have, this microphone does not like me. Next up we have Veronica. Christine. Thank you.
Welcome. I'm actually Veronica's manager, Christina Bozo-Baldenegro. She's unable to attend today, so I will be doing her presentation for her. I am in Employer Account Management Division, but also the manager of Membership Review Unit or team. Okay, so we're going to actually cover today what about arrears and membership determinations, and these are the topics I'm going to cover briefly since we only have about 15 minutes. So what can lead to an arrears review, what you as an employer can look at to see why we are asking for a membership review or determination, what your responsibilities are as a school employer, your criteria, the criteria for membership eligibility, the required documentation, the notification of late appointment, which many of you have already gotten, the CalPERS 0847, the teacher assistance and our certification questionnaire that we send out, completing payroll detail requests and resources you as an employer can go to for assistance. So first off, we have what can lead to an arrears review. We have membership date issues. So if we have a member that's requested service priority membership and there's a discrepancy between the date of membership that is in CalPERS and what they've submitted on the SPM form that has been signed by your agency or your personnel area, that would cause us to look at the membership. A 90-day violation. How many of you have received a CalPERS 0847 or your personnel office? It's a notification of late appointment. Okay, so you're familiar with that. What's happening now is we've set up a trigger in CalPERS that will automatically generate a letter if you enroll a member and then try to report payroll past 90 days. So you will be getting notification automatically. So if you get those, we do need those completed and sent back. Missing payroll. So if we are doing a membership review and there's missing payroll, we can also request further information from the agency to complete a membership review. If you're updating an appointment, which can cause the 90-day violation trigger, we could request an arrears review. SPM requests or service priority memberships typically come from our service credit purchase area, and that is triggered because they notice either 1,000 hours or they want us to verify exclusions, things of that nature, and so we'll contact you for additional information if it's not already in the SPM request that the member submitted. And then retirement, death, and/or disability. A lot of times we will get death cases where members have passed away, and we as an agency are penalized if we don't pay out the benefits to the member's family within a certain amount of time. So for us, we always request that those get expedited, and we hope that you as employers will expedite the request for information, getting it back to us so we can process the benefits for the member. Okay, and then also we've had what can lead to an arrears review is you or the member calling the contact center to verify information. If the member refunds or redeposits, we also have, as we talked about, the 90-day violation. That's a system trigger if there's an audit finding or audits and other errors. And there's other exceptions when we'll contact you for additional information on the member's appointment history. So your responsibilities, as you all know, are to verify the employee's CalPERS status, enroll and report each member timely, and I can't request that enough. Please enroll the members timely. It saves us a lot of time. I know it saves you tons of time, and your team members during summer, we have to call and get information, so it's very difficult sometimes for us to get the information, but just enrolling and reporting the member timely is key. And we would rather you call and verify. If you have questions, you can call the contact center. They'll route the inquiry to us for us to verify if you have questions about someone that you need to enroll. You want to notify CalPERS of changes of employment or enrollment status. That includes adding a separation date when members leave. That include updating, maintaining the appointments, reporting payroll timely and correctly. You also want to make sure to apply membership eligibility rules as they are in Government Code Section 20305, which I'll talk about in a moment, and provide us all the required documentation. We would not request the information if we did not need the information. So analysts will sometimes call and request information that you may wonder why we're asking, but we need to know time, base, and tenure, if they were hired permanent, part-time, etc. Okay, so I just mentioned 20305. So that's already if the CalPERS member has funds on deposit, known as the once-a-member rule. If they're hired permanent full-time or permanent part-time, working 20 hours a week or more. Additionally, we have completed 1,000 work hours within a fiscal year, and that would include temporary, indeterminate, limited term, or irregular positions, including on-call, seasonal, substitutes, intermittent, and extra help, etc. Some of the required documentation would be the hiring documents, the MEM 1344, or the MyCalPERS 0847, and we can certainly send a blank one to the SEAC mailbox. If you haven't gotten one yet, we'll show you so you know what you're to expect when you get it. We also need to have the time, base, and tenure. If the member or employee was a teacher's assistant, we will be sending a questionnaire and requiring a certificate be submitted to accept the exclusion. And then the ACC 167, for those of you that are more seasoned with CalPERS, you'll know that as the report of status change or separation. Those are for employees. I don't have a date when they quit using that form, but that is an older form. So you may have that if someone has worked for your agency for quite a long time, as far as when you've put in a separation date or should have put a separation date or changed their status. So I talked about the MyCalPERS 0847. So talked about it already. If it's entered more than 90 days after the eligibility date, it will trigger this form, get mailed to the arrears administrator or the payroll administrator. And late enrollments of this nature are considered employer-paid arrears per Government Code Section 20283. The employer would pay the member and employer costs plus a $500 fee. We do have a new process for charter schools. Are there any charter schools here? No, our process for those, because those individuals, our agencies are entering the appointments late, we will disregard the 0847s. We'll have you disregard those. Okay, moving on to the teacher assistants. This is not a new process, but we have a new procedure that we're utilizing at CalPERS to exclude or include teacher assistants. We require the TA certificate and duty statement for those employees where you're marking that they were teacher assistants in the degree track. We recommend submitting that with the SPM request. If your members are requesting that you complete the SPM form, if you mark teacher assistant, then you should submit it at that time for us to be able to expedite the request for the member. Okay, so completing payroll detail requests, we have 4 slides on this. You're supposed to maintain the agency's, the payroll records, and we can come and request payroll detail. And on those forms that we have listed there, we request that you complete the form timely within 30 days of request. We have to have it broken into fiscal years, so if the fiscal year the pay period overlaps, we would like you to break that out. Because the number of hours, as you know, 1,000 hours, you can make or break, 1 hour here or there. So it would be more efficient for us to have that to begin with. Don't overlap pay periods. Provide overtime and regular hours separate on the MEM 1344. And if the member is working multiple positions at multiple districts, we'll need those listed out as well. Most of you can read this here, the dates that we need on the top of the form, the dates of employment, the hire date, and the tie base and tenure. And to continue, we need the start and end dates, the position or positions, the pay rate, hours, earnings, and the authorized signature, authorized personnel signature at the bottom of the form. So any helpful tips for the 1344, if you have a question if something needs to be on there or not, you can either A, reach out to the analyst that requested the information or call the contact center. I'd rather have too much information for my team to review than not enough. So that's, you can work either call the contact center, as I said, or directly reach out to the analyst. If you have payroll records that are unavailable, we certainly can help you in working off estimates on W-2s, but we need to have a certified and signed MEM 1344 to process it with our service credit purchase area. And just as I said, that would be the exception. We can generate a MEM 1344 if the information that you would sign if the information is unavailable. So we have a few resources. As you all know, the Public Agency and Schools Reference Guide is online and updated annually. There's our email address for membership reporting. You all probably know the Customer Service Contact Center number by heart. And you can also reference Circular Letter 200-060-18 for information on completing the MEM 1344 and SPM requests. Questions? Hi.
Lena from Orange County.
Yep.
I just actually want to verify this, and I want to kind of hear from other counties as well. Our districts for hourly people, they use a calendar, for example, June 15th through July 14th, they consider that as a July payroll because they need time to collect the time cards, process the payment. And I know we get into trouble when we fill these 1344 forms
Right.
because for us it's a July pay period. For you guys,
Right.
it's a June.
Right.
Because their date is membership date might
Correct.
be whatever 16 or whatever it is, or sometime when they qualify with 1,000 hour, we make
Right.
the date July 1. All those different things. Do you know if other counties and all, they use the similar way, the calendars? Or
We
there is
do.
any concern? Because I have asked this
We
question.
do, but we still need the time split up, even if it's 40 hours in one, or 80 hours and then 80 hours in the next fiscal year, because our service credit purchase area requests that they have that for the calculation.
Yeah, but do you see any concern because part of the June is combined with July and we date the payroll as July 1 through
That's why
July
we want
30?
you to split, so it is a problem, so we would like you to
But
split
we
the fiscal.
can't.
Well, you can divide, you would be able to look at the employee's pay and say
because-
2 weeks. We can work with you in situations where it can't be just divided by, 4 weeks.
Do you come across the other counties?
We do, and so we have to work with employers and.
So it's a common practice.
Most
for-
times they will, I'm assuming if they can't they'll estimate and provide us the split. Because if it was you trying to obtain membership, you would want to make sure that your 1,000 hours was counted on the right appropriate
Right.
fiscal year, so, right.
I mean, we are counting, for example, June 15 through July 14 for the following fiscal year, even though, let's say they worked 18, 19,
Right,
and it will be going in 1920 year.
Right.
Because July payroll is in 1920 year.
so then you need to show it in the next fiscal year. If that's how it's going to be counted in that fiscal year, you need to show us on the
Even
MEM
though our
1344.
calendar classifies that June 15 through that date is a July pay period
If
for
it's-
us.
If it's for July, then you need to show it on the July pay period.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, next we have Brad Hansen with coaching stipends.
Hold your applause, please. Oh, wait a sec. This isn't me. Technical difficulties, one moment, please. Uh-oh. Ah, there we go. All right, there we go. So good morning. How's everyone doing today? Excellent. It's good to see all my school friends back again for another SEAC meeting, School Advisory Committee. For those who don't know me, my name's Brad Hansen. I'm the Assistant Chief in the Employer Account Management Division, and I oversee payroll and compensation review as well as the audit process as well. So with football season upon us, I thought, what a great opportunity to talk about one of our favorite topics, coaching stipends. And many of you guys were here for this last year when we did this, but I think it's a good reminder. I usually get a lot of inquiries about this topic around this time of year. In fact, I've already had a couple already. But it's just a good reminder of when you should report a coaching stipend and when you shouldn't report one. So this slide here, it says, is the stipend reportable? And it's got this little graphic and it shows compensated, reportable to CalPERS, and uncompensated, not reported to CalPERS. So this can be a little deceiving. When I say compensated, I mean compensated per the definition of the Public Employees Retirement Law. Does it meet the definition of a pay rate? Is it a routine and consistent pay rate? Is it on the publicly available pay schedule? Or is it simply just a lump sum benefit that you've given to the coach that came into work for a brief period of time, but wasn't really intended to be reported because it was just a one-time payment? In general, stipends are not reportable to CalPERS. Anything that's a one-time type payment, it creates an unfunded liability and thus is not reportable to CalPERS. With PEPRA, it's basically eliminated all stipends. With Classic, there are a few stipends that are reportable, such as bonuses, but a coaching stipend is not considered a reportable item under our regulation 571A. 571A is the reg that lists out all of the different types of special comps that are reportable to CalPERS, and coaching stipend isn't one of them. So the only time really that you would see a coaching stipend reportable is if you had a valid position, you had a consistent pay rate with consistent earnings as well, and it was listed on your publicly available pay schedule. If it doesn't meet all of those criteria, then it's not considered reportable to CalPERS. You know, even in some cases, it might meet the membership eligibility, but it's not gonna meet the compensation eligibility. Because at the end of the day, if you reported them to us and we had, you know, these odd pay rates that don't match up to a pay schedule, we would end up denying them anyways. So you shouldn't report them because it really doesn't meet the criteria. You know, some of the things we commonly see is you'll see a really large pay rate, like a $1,000 pay rate, and then there will be really small amount of earnings. And it gives a really big pay rate for final comp purposes, but they're not getting the service credit. That's usually a trigger for us to go that this was something that was not reported truly as a pay rate, but just as a one-time stipend. Don't see it as often as we used to, but it still comes up from time to time. So I've created a little quiz for everybody, and I think it should be fun. And we're gonna, I'm gonna throw the scenario out, and I'm gonna see if anybody wants to answer. And Vina, if nobody wants to answer, I'm gonna let you answer it. I like to tease Vina. We have a good relationship. All right, so here's scenario one. We have a CalPERS member, a person that's already a member. They're working in a full-time position. It's not a coaching position. They're also employed as a walk-on coach. And the position's listed on a publicly available pay schedule. Is this reportable to CalPERS? All right, so I've seen a lot of people shaking their heads. I heard actually someone say no, and actually, you're correct. It's not reportable to CalPERS. Even though the position's on the pay schedule, the person has a full-time position with CalPERS. So this would be considered an overtime position. Though, you should report it as a non-contributory appointment. Just in case that other position was to fall off, then you'd have another position. Does someone have a question about that? Yes.
Even though it's on pay schedule, even though it's on pay schedule, but we cannot really track hours, verify the hours.
Well,
Because it will be, everything else will be
Right.
the same, except that we can't verify the hours.
right. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, it wouldn't do any harm, but if it is a position on the pay schedule, I'm looking for the membership team to confirm this. If it's on the pay schedule and it's deemed a position, then you should report it as a non-contributory. You wouldn't have to pay any contributions on it, but it's just there to track in case the person was to say go to a part-time position, or that they were perhaps lost their other position and they were simply the coach. Then that appointment would be picked up and then you could report it.
Because long time ago, based on whatever our interpretation was or our understanding was for coaching position, lots of districts came up with a salary schedule, but which is not, end of the day, it is a stipend, but on the paper, it looks good with a pay rate and all that, but they still cannot track hours.
Yeah.
So
you know, by the letter of the law, though, if it is qualified for membership and they're full-time, we still should track that and have it reported, because should the person lose that full-time position or switch to part-time, then it would be reportable. So, but you would have to find a way to track the hours in those situations.
So as long as there is a salary schedule for walk-on.
Yeah, and you have a consistent pay rate, it meets all of the different definitions of compensation and membership. Yes, good question. Yes, ma'am.
So you are allowed to have a contributory and a non-contributory appointment for the same school district? Like if the full-time position and the coaching was done at the same district, you can have 2 appointments?
Correct, yes.
I have a clarifying question. In related to that, if the person is working a full-time position, that's 40 hours, correct?
Correct, a full-time position is 40 hours, right? So they're earning full service credit every month. So the person was working, got only 75% service credit, well, then that coaching stipend should, or, sorry, not coaching stipend, coaching pay rate, because at this point it's a pay rate, that should be reported because it needs to be reported up to 40 for the service credit purposes.
Okay, Brad, we have a question from Monica with the Ventura County Office of Education. How does this apply if it's a lump sum? If an employee is a member of CalPERS and only does coaching for a district and the stipend is paid in a lump sum, that is listed on a publicly available pay schedule, is that reportable to PERS?
Well, if it's reported as a lump sum, no, it's not reported accurately. Now, if it was qualified for membership and there was established position with a valid pay rate on the pay schedule, again, met all the different definitions of compensation and membership, it should be reported as earned, and it should be based on what their full-time pay rate is with the appropriate earnings that they worked every month, which is basically like what Bina was alluding to. You need to find a way to track those hours so that it's reported appropriately. But you can't report it as a lump sum. If you report a $5,000 lump sum, but really the person worked for 6 months and all they earned was $5,000, you need to come up with a pay rate that shows what they were earning per month. And the appropriate service credit is also should translate to the amount of earnings that they had during that time, up to full-time 40 hours. Yes, another question.
Okay, so just to clarify the $5,000 example, you mean the pay rate needs to be hourly, monthly, or annual?
The pay rate needs to be hourly, monthly, or daily.
Daily, sorry.
Yes,
Okay, so it has to be a time-based pay rate on a salary schedule that is publicly available.
correct. It has to be a
So
pay
the
rate
key
that,
word here is time-based.
time-based, correct. It has to be based on hourly, monthly, daily, because that's the only types of pay rates that we allow. We don't use per unit pay. And the lump sums is actually a really huge problem. We had an audit cycle last couple years where we had a lot of lump sum findings. What happens is those lump sums, sometimes our system will pick up 2 lump sums that were intended for 2 separate fiscal years, but because of the month they reported in, it used both of them. And when it uses both of them, it's inflating that special comp and it's creating a huge unfunded liability. Like Andrew was talking about earlier, like the SB 266, that would be something potentially that would fall under that. Yeah. All right, these are great questions. All right, scenario 2. We have a CalPERS member again, working in a part-time position. And they're also employed as a walk-on coach, and the position's listed on a publicly available pay schedule. Is this reportable to CalPERS? I've seen some nodding and I heard a couple yeses, and that is correct. We kind of just covered this when we were just going over those questions. Yes, there's a question over here.
I believe the answer would change to no if that was a stipend flat rate of $5,000 and not time-based, correct?
Correct. It's got to be a time-based position. If it's just a lump sum amount, right? Basically, if it's a stipend like that, it wouldn't be in compliance with CalPERS. Even if you have a pay schedule, we would look at that and say, this is not a valid position because you can't just have a lump sum as pay rate. But yes, it should be based on time-based, the hourly or monthly rate. We prefer hourly or monthly. You could do daily as well, but it should have the hourly, monthly rate broken out, and then the earnings need to be reported as earned. But yeah, in this case, right, you have 2 positions. You're 50% in one position, 50% in another position. This coaching position, that position's on the pay schedule with a time base with an hourly pay rate. You can track the hours they worked. Both of them should be reported up to full time. So 50% on this one, 50% on the other, or however the percentages break out. All right, scenario 3. This is a non-CalPERS member, so someone that is not a member currently. They're working in a part-time school position. They're also employed as a walk-on coach. Position is listed on a publicly available pay schedule. Is this reported to CalPERS? Yeah, right. This one's a little tricky one, but the answer is no to begin with because the person's not qualified for CalPERS membership. However, should the person work enough hours, I believe it's 1,000 hours, once they make that 1,000 hours, then it becomes reportable to CalPERS, and then it should be reported going forward. As long as the pay schedule is accurate with the proper time base, pay rate, and earnings. Yes, Bina?
So if there is no service, I think you should leave this.
Yeah.
So if it's getting a stipend,
Uh-huh. Like a lump sum?
examples like lump sum stipend, then we should not count them in 1,000 hours.
That's correct. If it's just a lump sum, one-time payment, and it's not a true pay rate, doesn't meet the definition of pay rate, then no, it should not be reportable.
Okay, we shouldn't count them in 1,000 hours.
No, we should not.
We shouldn't monitor them.
Correct, because at that point, it's not truly eligible for membership because it doesn't meet the compensation laws.
Okay.
There's not a valid pay rate, there's no, we don't have proper earnings.
Okay,
Yes.
since I have this in my hand, I want to
Yes.
verify one more thing. So I'll leave you alone then.
No, no, no. Bring him on.
I mean, even though we are using walk-on coaches here,
Uh-huh.
but the same rules will apply even if it's some other positions that districts have, like at our county, we call them professional experts, that they hire them on a contract.
Right, like a
For
one-time. Mm-hmm.
example, there is no track of hours or anything. It's based on their skills. Somebody can get 7,000, somebody can get 2,000,
Yeah.
depending. So even those same rules will apply as walk-on coaches.
Right, exactly. And
Thank
we're
you.
using coaches as the example because that's the most common one we see. But yeah, it would apply to any kind of walk-on situation. If it's not a position that you don't have on the pay schedule, you don't have a pay rate with a time base, and you don't have the hours tracked, and it doesn't meet the definition of compensation or membership, no, it's not reportable. I mean, it's got to meet all the criteria in order to be reportable to CalPERS. And I was worried that after last year's presentation, you guys were like, we don't want to hear this anymore. And the last scenario, I think it's my last one, scenario 4. We have a non-CalPERS member only employed as a walk-on coach. The position's not listed on the pay schedule. Is that reportable to CalPERS? No. That one's obvious no, right? It's not reportable because it's not considered a valid position. They're not on the pay schedule. We don't have all the compensation rules hammered down. So this one's not reportable. And of course, if you do want to make a coaching stipend reportable and you need help with anything on there, you can always email my team. We have this mailbox at mou_review@calpers.ca.gov. Any kind of questions like that, you can email that box, or if you want, you can always email me. I've actually had a couple of you guys reach out to me about this coaching stipend question, and we drafted a letter that we sent out to help clarify so that you could send it to the districts if they had any questions about it or had a disagreement with you on it. So if you need any help with that, feel free to always email me or email my team at that mailbox.
We can have a PowerPoint.
Oh, sure. Yeah, you guys should have access to this one, right, Bill?
Instead of me typing all this again,
Oh,
I'm just sharing your PowerPoint.
all right, let me see what I can do. All right. All right, well, that's all I have for the day. I'm going to turn it over to Bill, and he'll introduce the next speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brad. Okay, next up, we have Kurt from our actuarial office. Okay, let me get the slides. There we go.
Thank you, and good morning. So the way the schedule works is every year we do evaluation, and we usually present results to the CalPERS board in April, and that sets the contribution rate for the following fiscal year. And we did that this year as usual, and a couple things happened. To give you an update, since then, one thing that happened is we now know the investment return for the fund for the last fiscal year, because it ends June 30, 2019, and the return was 6.7%, which is a little bit less than what was assumed. What was assumed for that year for the schools pool was 7.25%, so it's a little bit of an investment loss, but not a huge impact on the contribution rates going forward. And the other thing that happened was that the state had extra money in their budget towards the end of the 18-19 fiscal year. And one of the things they did with the extra money was to make a contribution to the schools pool to help offset the school employer's contribution rate for future years, and in particular for this year. So that was a bill that was signed at the very end of June, right before, along with signing the fiscal year budget for the upcoming year. It appropriated $904 million to the schools pool. So normally, you know, the benefits are funded by member and employer contributions. So this is the first time I'm aware of where the state made a contribution to help offset those employer contributions. CalPERS received that money, the entire $904 million, on July 27th, so we actually have the money. But just to put it in perspective, the unfunded liability for that pool right now is about $31 billion. So this extra contribution is less than $1 billion, so it doesn't eliminate the unfunded liability by any means. But it does improve the funded status and have an impact on the employer contributions going forward. So what I did is I graphed out those contributions with and without the extra $904 million, taking into account the return for that year. So the contribution rate, the employer contribution rate right now, this fiscal year, is 19.721% of pay, which is less than what we said it was going to be. What we adopted in April was 20.733. So it's a little bit lower, and it's a little bit lower next year. That's the bulk of the impact is over those 2 years. The remaining is spread over the following 26 years, I think, where it's a little bit lower than it would have been. And the assets are a little bit higher than they would have been. The impact on the funded status, you can see for the 6/30/19 valuation, there's still a little bit of a dip in the funded status for a couple reasons. The fund didn't earn quite what was expected. The $904 million was not yet received. And there's an assumption change on 6/30/19 that reduces the discount rate to 7%. So that causes a decrease in the funded ratio, but it's projected to start increasing after that. We have higher contributions than we used to have, and those will be enough to make up, start making up for that unfunded liability. So are there any questions? And if not, we'll move along to the next speaker. Thank you.
All right. It is 10:15, so let's go ahead and take a break and be back by 10:30. Sound good? All right. We'll be back at 10:30.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started while she passes out the forms. Good morning, everyone. My name is Angelica Cullen, and I am a Staff Services Analyst in the Pre-Retirement Survivor Benefits Unit at CalPERS. I also have my peer, Alexis Woodyard, here with me today, and she is in the Exceptional Processing Unit at CalPERS. She will be assisting me in answering any questions you all may have at the end of the presentation. For today's presentation, I will be going over the importance of having a CalPERS pre-retirement lump sum beneficiary designation on file and a CalPERS special power of attorney on file. By a show of hands, how many of you have a CalPERS designation on file? Okay, good job. How many of you have a CalPERS special power of attorney on file? Okay, if you did not raise your hand, we have handed out both forms for you to complete, and we will be collecting them at the end of today's session. And we will also have time for Q&A at the end, so please hold all your questions until prompted. I want to begin by going over the statutory order that we use to pay benefits in the absence of a valid beneficiary designation on file. Per Government Code Section 21493, if a member is married or in a registered domestic partnership, then we would pay their spouse or registered domestic partner. If there is no spouse or registered domestic partner, then we would pay their biological and adopted children. If there are no children, then we would pay their biological and adoptive parents in equal shares. And if the parents predeceased the member, then we would pay the biological and adopted siblings in equal shares. If there are no siblings or the siblings predeceased the member, then we would pay the member's probated estate. And if there is no probated estate, then we would pay the member's trust. And if there is no trust, then we would move further down the statutory order, which you may refer to in the Public Employees Retirement Law Book. A member can name any person, organization, estate, or trust as a beneficiary. Please keep in mind that a pre-retirement monthly allowance cannot be designated. If a spouse is married or in a registered domestic partnership, then their spouse or registered domestic partner must also sign the designation form. If they are unable to sign for any reason, then the justification for absence of spouse or registered domestic partner signature form must be completed. Now I will begin going over the pre-retirement lump sum beneficiary designation form, so you may all follow along with me. In Section 1, you will complete your personal information such as name, Social Security number or CalPERS ID if you know it, address, and phone number. In Section 2, you will complete your primary beneficiary's information. The more identifiable information you provide, the easier it will be to locate your beneficiary. Please keep in mind that if more than one primary beneficiary is designated, then the total percentage of benefit must equal 100%. If a percentage is not listed, then we would pay your primary beneficiaries in equal shares. Section 3 is for you to complete your secondary beneficiaries information. Again, the more identifiable information you provide, the easier it will be to locate your beneficiary. The same rule applies to the percentage of benefit. If more than one secondary beneficiary is listed, then the total percentage must equal 100%. And if no percentage is listed, then we would pay all your secondary beneficiaries in equal shares. Section 4 is a new section that was added to the designation at the beginning of the year. And this section applies to members who are married or in a registered domestic partnership and have named someone else other than their spouse or registered domestic partner as beneficiaries. At the bottom of Section 4, the spouse is voluntarily signing and consenting and waiving any rights they may have to their community property interest. Section 5 is for your signature, acknowledging and consenting that the information you have provided is true and accurate. Please also list if you are legally married or in a registered domestic partnership. If you are not married or in a registered domestic partnership, then please select one of the options below. And if you are married or in a registered domestic partnership, then your spouse must also sign the designation form. And again, if they are unable to complete the signature portion for any reason, then the justification for absence of spouse or registered domestic partner signature form must be completed. Section 6 is for your spouse or registered domestic partner to sign and acknowledge that they are aware of the designation you have made. Please make sure to provide the date of marriage or registered domestic partnership date. There are certain life events that may revoke a designation, such as marriage or registration of domestic partnership, divorce or revocation of domestic partnership, birth or adoption of a child, and refund of your CalPERS account. So if any of the first 3 events have occurred in your life, please make sure to submit a new designation form. There are many benefits to having a designation on file. When you have a designation on file, it ensures that we are paying benefits per your last wishes. And it helps us identify and locate your beneficiaries because we know exactly who we need to contact. And this ensures timely and accurate processing of benefit payments. Please make sure to submit your designation form to CalPERS immediately and review for accuracy to ensure that the form is accepted. Members can also submit a designation online through their MyCalPERS self-service account. It's super quick and easy, and all you need is your beneficiary's Social Security number, birthday, and address. Next, I will be going over the CalPERS power of attorney. The CalPERS Special Power of Attorney form is specifically designed for CalPERS, and it allows your attorney, in fact, to conduct business with us on your behalf. Please keep in mind that the form cannot be used to make medical decisions or provide authority over real or personal property. The CalPERS Power of Attorney form authorizes your attorney-in-fact to conduct the following transactions: change your address, submit a retirement application, select a retirement option, designate beneficiaries, request benefit payment information, add or change direct deposit, and change tax withholdings. Please be aware that your attorney-in-fact is not authorized to access your MyCalPERS account. If they need to conduct any of the following transactions, then they may either submit a written request or visit one of our regional offices. Now I'll begin going over the special power of attorney form. So if you turn to page 7 on the booklet that we have handed out, you may follow along with me. Section 1 is for you to complete your personal information, such as name, social security number, CalPERS ID if you know it, address, and phone number. Section 2 is for you to complete your appointed attorneys-in-fact information. If you have appointed more than one attorney-in-fact, then you must select whether you would like them to act jointly, separately, or alternately. If you would like to have them act alternately, then please identify the order in which your attorneys-in-fact are to act. In Section 3, you are granting specific authorities to your attorney-in-fact, such as, my attorney-in-fact is or is not authorized to select any retirement payment option available under the retirement plan other than the unmodified allowance. My attorney-in-fact is or is not authorized to designate or change my beneficiary. And my attorney-in-fact is or is not authorized to designate him or herself as my beneficiaries. You may also give special instructions limiting the powers granted to your attorney-in-fact at the bottom of the section. In Section 4, you are selecting the duration of your power of attorney. There are 4 choices to choose from. The durable power of attorney is to commence immediately and to remain in effect for your lifetime, even if you become incapacitated or until you specifically revoke it. The limited power of attorney is to commence on a specific date or event and terminate on a specific date or event. The contingent or springing power of attorney is to commence only upon a determination that you are incapacitated or unable to handle your own affairs. This determination must be made in a written statement by the person designated below, and if a person is not named, then we would default to a medical professional. The general or non-durable power of attorney is to terminate in its entirety if you become incapacitated. And again, the determination must be made in a written statement signed by the person that you have designated below, and if a person is not named, then we would default to a medical professional. Section 5 is for your attorney-in-fact to sign, acknowledging that you have appointed them and they are aware of the legal responsibilities. Section 5 is optional and is not a requirement. Section 6 is for your signature, acknowledging that you are executing this legal document under your own free will. And Section 7 must be completed by 2 witnesses who are not your attorneys-in-fact. If you are unable to complete Section 7, then you may have a notary public complete Section 8 for you. CalPERS does offer free notary services, so you may visit one of your regional offices. You may change or terminate your power of attorney at any time. To change your power of attorney, all you need to do is complete a new form, inform others of changes, and provide the new form to your new attorney-in-fact. And to terminate your power of attorney, all you need to do is submit a request in writing. This concludes the presentation, and now we will open it up for any questions. I know it's a lot of material. Does anyone have any questions?
We have a question from Monica Keller. And her question is, what is the minimum age of a beneficiary and power of attorney designee?
So the question was the minimum age for a beneficiary? There is none. So your power, well, for the power of attorney, it is 18. So you have to be over 18 to be appointed as the attorney in fact. For the beneficiary, you can name your child at any age.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, everyone. We'll be here until the end of today's session, so if you have any questions, you are more than welcome to come ask. And if you have completed your power of attorney form and you need two witnesses' signature, we are also here and we can complete that for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Annette Ponce from our Customer Education and Outreach Division. All right.
Right. Oh, what form style? My notes are. Give me just a second. All right. Good morning, everyone. How's everybody doing today? Good, good. And hello to those that are on the webcast and to my team that's watching. Hello to you too. My name is Annette Ponce, and I'm one of the managers in the Employer Education Program. And I'm very, very excited to be here with you. So hope you could see that through my smiles here today. Again, it's my pleasure to showcase the Employer Education Program and how we can help you with your education and training needs. For today's agenda, I'm going to provide you an overview of the program itself. And within our program, we have 3 education areas in which I will cover each area and share how we can help you with your education needs. So those areas would be the CalPERS Business Rules Education, the CalPERS System Training, and the online classes. I'll conclude with some resources and also open up for any questions that you may have of me. All right. The employer education team, we ultimately serve as CalPERS's voice to you employers. Our partnership with our CalPERS program areas allow us to understand your employer needs so that we can update our training materials accurately and on time, and then also create any new training opportunities for you. Our comprehensive program ultimately is designed to help you conduct business with CalPERS. So we like to call it our business rules education. We like to call it the rules of the road, understanding that. And whereas my CalPERS system training is more behind the wheel training. You know, you get behind the wheel. And we have our online classes that actually represents a hybrid approach. It's going to showcase both our employer education for business rules and my CalPERS system training. So let me go ahead and dig a little bit deeper to show you what we have to offer you. Starting with business rules education is ultimately very, very important. It is important for building your foundation, as you saw many of the presentations today. Again, it's the rules of the road. And it's designed to provide you information not for just the retirement portion, but also for those of you that contract for health benefits. Logistically, how these classes are run, they're approximately 3 hours long, and they're in settings like this with a PowerPoint given to you, and they're covering all the details in terms of business rules. The fundamentals has to do with the membership, payroll, and retirement. But I wanted to share with you what they're talking about in those classes, as I think it'd be important as what you've learned today. They're talking in things of nature of hiring and reporting retired annuitants. When it comes to membership, they're covering eligibility. What's the difference between new versus classic? Payroll reporting, they're covering pay rates and special compensation, showing you how to calculate a service retirement, which is important. But most important, we're sharing what your role is in the retirement process itself. And again, for those that contract for health business rules, you're going to learn, the health benefits officer is going to learn what roles that they need to perform.